see what is the particulate matters or the particulate pollutions. It consists of solids in the air in the form of smoke, dust and vapor that can remain suspended in the air for extended period of time, such as the dust and soot. It includes the sulfate, nitrates and black carbon or BCs, and the particle bound water, metals such as cadmium, copper, nickel, zinc, or it may also contain lead, hydrocarbons as well. In addition, the biological components such as allergens such as pollen, dust mites and microbial compounds such as fungi are also a part of particulate matter. The major source of the suspended particulate matter are the industrial pollution, vehicular pollution, pollution from the power plants, construction sites and the oil refinery, railway yard, marketplace, industries. Now there are various sizes of the particulate matters, and among that is one called the PM10, which is the inhalable particles with diameters that are generally around 10 micrometers, and average human hair is around 70 micrometers. So you can understand this is much more smaller than that. And PM25, which is much more smaller, it is around 2.5 micrometers in the diameter and it's smaller. And according to the CPCB, that is Central Pollution Board, the particulate size of 2.5 micron or less diameter, that is PM2.5, are mainly responsible for causing greatest harm to the human health. And the finer the particles, when these finer particles are breathed, it can lodge into our lungs and cause lung damage, and it can cause respiratory troubles as well. According to these National Ambient Air Quality Standards by CPCB, in a 24-hour average, the PM10 should be around 100 micrograms per cubic meter and 60 micrograms for the PM2.5. But recently, or during the time of Delhi pollutions or Delhi smogs, the PM2.5 reached as high as 999 microgram per cubic meters. So it is having a devastating effect for the Delhi people at that time. And this particular fine particulates can be inhaled deep into the lungs and can cause breathing and respiratory symptoms, irritation, inflammations, pneumoconiosis, or the disease which in the lungs is caused due to the inhalation of the dust, and is characterized by inflammation, coughing and fibrosis, excess deposition of the fibrous tissues, and the continuous exposure to this particulate matter can cause asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD, and any type of bronchitis. And this particular PM can penetrate deep inside the lungs and damage it. Let's see the chlorofluorocarbon or CFC. Now these are gases which are basically used in the used as solvents, including solvents and refrigerants such as refrigeration and aerosol sprays. They are organic chemicals, the CFCs, and they contain carbon, basically sometimes hydrogen as well, chlorine and fluorine. These chlorofluorocarbons are basically used in a variety of applications or appliances because of their low toxicity and low reactivity and low inflammability or flammability. And these usages are include the refrigerants, blowing agents, propellants in the medicinal applications, and degreasing solvents. And the CFCs are mainly used as coolants in the refrigerator and the air conditioners. These slowly pass to the troposphere, from the troposphere to the stratosphere, that is up in the atmosphere. The stratosphere lies, and once it deposited into the stratosphere, they stay here for a long time, around 100 years. And in the presence of UV radiation from the sun, this particular CFC is breaking up and is breaking up into this chlorine free radical, and by this reaction you can see the chlorine radical is remaining, or a chain reaction is happening by which this chlorine free radical is again and again produced. As can be seen here, the free radical chlorine is regenerated and continues the chain reaction. Okay, and this reaction is taking place again and again, and the free radical of chlorine is formed, and this particular chlorine is detrimental for the ozone, as you can see by this. So this chlorine is destroying the ozone in the ozone layer of the stratosphere by this particular reaction, you can see. So the damage by CFC continues for even 100 years. Okay, even if we stop the CFC production or stop using it all over the world, the CFC that is already there in the stratosphere, it will continue to damage the ozone layer for the next 100 years. So it is having a high potential to damage the ozone layer. Now the Montreal Protocol, under the Vienna Convention for the protection of the ozone layer, is basically the international law, you can say, or a protocol, which is an international treaty designed to protect the ozone layer by phasing out the production of the ODS, or the ozone depleting substances, which include the CFC, and which is basically responsible for the ozone depletion. And it was agreed in the year of 1987 in Montreal, Canada, and entered into force around 1989. And under it, the production and consumption of the key ODS like the CFC, methyl chloroform, and CTC halones, methyl bromide, they have been phased out globally. And this particular Montreal Protocol is legally binding on the member countries, and it has been ratified by 197 parties or countries, making this particular treaty or protocol a universally making it universally ratified protocol in the UN history. And it is also highly successful international arrangement, as it has phased out more than 95% of the ODS so far, and it has helped recovering the ozone hole in the Antarctica as well. Now next, see the VOCs, or the volatile organic compounds. Now VOCs are basically compounds that contain carbon and can quickly turn into vapors and gases in the room temperature. These VOCs can be released by a number of products or items in contemporary life, and they contribute to air pollution and serious health conditions. Okay, now this VOC can be found in the household products or items commonly used, from gasoline, office supplies, and it can be in the paint thinners, degreasers, aerosol cans, dry cleaning products, paints, photographic supplies, and it can be in the printers and the photocopying machines and supplies as well. And whenever the weather is very hot, these VOCs are more likely to be present in the air we breathe. Therefore, it is more dangerous to the human health. Not all VOCs are toxic, however, some cases there are clearly negative effects depending on the compound. And the formaldehyde, which is mainly consisting in the paints, various form of paints, it evaporates from the paint, and which is having around a boiling temperature around minus 19 degrees C, this formaldehyde. So at the room temperature, where it is around say 30 or 25 or something around this, it is already a gas, and it can be all easily inhaled by the normal people or during the paint jobs. It causes irritation in the eyes and nose, and allergies it can cause. The diesel exhaust, styrene, benzene, and the perchloroethylene, they are also such VOCs which are known or suspected carcinogens. The heavy traffic, smoking, various types of workplace exposure can pose serious health risk, which includes the respiratory tract infections, headaches, fatigue, dizziness, nausea, liver or kidney damage, problems in the central nervous system. These are all bad effects of the VOCs. All VOCs are the major causes of photochemical smog. In photochemical smog, this VOC is a must. Okay. Next, see the detrimental effect of lead. Now, lead is a naturally occurring toxic metal found in the Earth's crust. Important sources are mining, smelting, manufacturing, and recycling activities. And in some countries, continued use of leaded paint is used, leaded gasoline or petrol is used, leaded aviation fuel is also used. One normal use include the lead acid batteries, which are used in the motor vehicles, and the drinking water delivered through the lead pipes, and the pipes joined with the lead shoulder may contain lead as well. And there is no level of exposure to lead that is known to be without any harmful effect. This particular sentence means that whenever one person or anyone is exposed to some part of the lead exposure, there is always some harmful effect. Now, lead is a cumulative toxicant that affects the multiple body systems. This is particularly harmful to young children. Young children are very much exposed to this lead pollution. They can suffer profound and permanent adverse health effects, such as in brain and nervous system damage. And large exposure affects the development of the brain in the children, lowers their IQ level. Unnourished children are more susceptible to the lead because their bodies absorb more lead if other nutrients such as calcium, iron are lacking. So this is a very serious problem in the underdeveloped or the less developed countries. Lead in the body is distributed to the brain, liver, kidney and the bones. It is stored in the teeth and the bones, where it accumulates over time, and human exposure is usually assessed through the measurement of lead in blood. Lead in the bone released into blood during pregnancy of the pregnant woman, and it becomes a source of exposure to the developing fetus. The people can become exposed to lead through occupational hazards or environmental sources, and this mainly results in the inhalation of the lead particles generally generated by burning of the materials containing lead, such as in smelting and the recycling activity, stripping of the leaded paint and using the leaded fuel. Now, people can also be ingesting lead contaminated dust, water from the leaded pipes, and food from the lead glazed or the lead shouldered containers. And the TEL, that is tetraethyl lead, is used as an anti-knock agent in the petrol for smooth and easy running of the vehicles. So this TEL is also contributing to the lead pollution by the vehicles. Now, WHO has joined with the UNEP or United Nations UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, to form a global alliance to eliminate lead paints. The phasing out of lead paint by the year 2020 is one of its priority actions for the governments, included in the WHO's roadmap. The government should incentivize a shift from the lead acid batteries to more efficient but expensive LiPo or the lithium polymer batteries through subsidies and the tax breaks. So these are some of the measures by which the lead can be usage of lead can be curbed. Now next, see the fly ash. Fly ash is basically ejected from the thermal power plants as byproducts during the coal burning of the coal, and it's a major source of PM 2.5 in the summer. It becomes airborne and gets transported to a radius of around 10 to 20 kilometers. It can settle in the water and other surfaces such as the leaves of the plants, thereby hampering their normal photosynthesis process. It makes water unworthy of drinking, cause the potential damage for the growing of crops. Now, fly ash particles, they are oxide rich, and they consist of silica, alumina, oxides of iron, calcium, magnesium, and toxic heavy metals like lead, arsenic, cobalt, and copper. Major oxides present are aluminum silicate in large amounts, silicon dioxide or SiO2, and calcium oxide as well. Now, this fly ash is nothing but a pozzolan. What is this pozzolan? Pozzolan Pozzolans are substances which contains aluminous and siliceous material, or the basically aluminium oxides or the silicon oxides, and that forms cement in the presence of water. This is pozzolan. And when mixed with lime and water, fly ash forms a compound similar to Portland cement. Okay. Now cement can be replaced by fly ash up to 35%. So fly ash can be used with cement, and this the reducing the cost of construction, making roads, etc. Fly ash bricks are light in weight, and they are more this is having high strength and durability as well. Now proper management of the fly ash is important for the environmental and also for the power plants, as it occupies a lot of land space, and at present 63% of the fly ash being utilized, while the target is for the 100% utilization. So this is a problem with the fly ash, but with proper management of the fly ash, there the 100% utilization can be achieved. Now central government has already mandated that to use fly ash bricks in the construction activities of buildings which are constructing in the radius of around 500 kilometers from the thermal power plants. Now next see the ozone. Now there is something called good ozone and bad ozone. Now this good ozone is basically a ozone which is present in the stratosphere or stratospheric ozone, which is a good ozone. Now this particular ozone becomes very bad, or becomes detrimental for human being when it is present in the ground level, because it is highly reactive and can have adverse impacts on the human health. In the Earth's lower atmosphere, that is troposphere, near the ground level, ozone is formed when the pollutants emitted by the car, power plants, industrial boilers, refineries, chemical plants and other sources, they react chemically in the presence of sunlight. Okay. Now ozone is not directly emitted by any source, but is formed as a byproduct or a reactive agent by the photochemical reactions between the NOx or nitrogen oxides and the volatile organic compounds VOCs and the other gases in the air under the influence of sunlight and heat as well. Now this photochemical smog is produced when pollutants from combustion of fossil fuels react with sunlight. The energy in the sunlight converts the pollutants into toxic chemicals. In order for the photochemical smog to form, there must be other pollutants as well, which are specifically the nitrous oxides, the NOx and the VOCs. So these two pollutants are main components of the photochemical smog with presence of sunlight. Okay. Now ozone pollution is thus also a clear indicator of the vehicular pollution, which results in a higher concentration of NOx. The ozone is primarily a sunny weather problem in India, as the presence of sunlight has a direct impact on the formation of the ground level ozone. Now, heat acts as a catalyst, facilitating photochemical reactions. Hence, higher concentration of ozone is seen during the summer times or summer months. Okay. Now, usually the ozone levels tend to spike when the winter conditions subside and the presence is felt during the day. At night, ozone levels tend to deplete and before spiking up again during the afternoon when the sunlight is available again. Now, surface ozone can lead to cough, shortness of breath, throat pain and short term, and it can cause corrosion in the lining of lungs and make lungs vulnerable to the further infections in case of long term exposure. Now ozone worsens bronchitis, asthma and increase in the risk and susceptibility to the COPD or the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Now what are the measures to control the ground level ozone? First is the shifting to the BS6 compliant vehicles from BS4. shutting down the Badarpur thermal power plant, which is near Delhi NCR region, Delhi NCR, and banning of the garbage burning. Also, something called GRAP, or the Graded Response Action Plan. In this particular GRAP, there is a term called odd even scheme of the vehicular traffic, which is being implemented by the governments. And again, it can be the launching of the NCAP, or the National Clean Air Program, setting up the monitoring networks in different areas for the assessment of ambient air quality. And let's see some biological agents which are contributing to the air pollution, which include pollen from the plants, mite and hair from the pets or the animals, fungi, parasites, spores, and some bacteria as well, dropping in body parts of the cockroaches, rodents and other pests or insects. And most of them are basically allergens, so they are causing allergies. They can cause a sneezing, asthma, dizziness, hay fever, fevers and the other allergic diseases. Now, reducing the exposure to these biological contaminants include installing and use of exhaust fans which into the constricted areas such as kitchens and bathrooms. If using cool mist or ultrasonic humidifiers, clean the appliance properly as per the manufacturer's instruction and refill with the fresh water daily, and thoroughly clean and dry the water damaged carpets inside the building or building materials, or may consider removal or a complete removal or replacement. Keep the houses clean always, and the house dust, mites, pollens and animal danders and other allergic causing agents can be reduced as well. They cannot be totally eliminated, but they can be reduced. Now, there is a role of animal husbandry in the air pollution. Now, India has a huge livestock population such as cattle, sheep, buffaloes in the world. They provide us milk, meat and their excreta are the rich source of fertilizer for agriculture. But these animal farms, they produce food, but they produce massive amounts of animal waste as well that emit different harmful gases into this atmosphere. Some of these gases include nitrous oxide, ammonia, methane. This is the main component, methane, which is a very important greenhouse gas, and it also having endotoxins and hydrogen sulfide with it also. Now, UNFAO, or Food and Agricultural Organization, estimates that livestock production is responsible for around 14.5% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, in which the methane gas is one of the largest contributors to global warming and can trap heat up to 100 times more than the heat trapped by the carbon dioxide for a period of 5 years. Okay. Most of the methane comes from these cows and buffalo excreta, or the excretion products of the cows and buffaloes. And another problem with the animal waste collecting in the massive lagoons. Another problem with this particular animal waste collecting in the massive lagoons. That means the animal waste, they are ultimately going to a water body and they are collected. And these wastes break down and forms ammonia gas, and then they breeds bacteria in it, which combines with other pollutants in the air, forms the nitric acid, and this nitric acid builds up in the atmosphere and then returns to the surface of the earth as acid rain, harming the soil and forest habitats and the water ecosystems. Now, there is also agriculture which is damaging or which is causing air pollution. Methane, CH4, is nitrous oxide, N2O, are the two main gases emitted by the agricultural activities. Methane, which is primarily produced from the enteric fermentation and manure management, while soil management such as fertilization was the largest source of nitrous oxide, N2O. And the paddy fields paddy fields account for around 20% human related emissions of methane, a potent greenhouse gas. Just we have seen. Farmers normally flood the rice fields throughout the growing season and maintaining the growing season, meaning that methane produced by the microbes underwater into the paddy fields as they help to decay the flooded organic material or matter. So basically the methane is being emitted by the fermentation or the enteric fermentation process of different bacteria in the paddy fields, and this is a major contributor of the air pollution. In addition to methane, nitrous oxide, that is agricultural activities, have been linked to the emission of the other dangerous gases and pollutants. These include the carbon dioxide, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide and the airborne particulate matter, which has been linked with the health problems.